After my life was unexpectedly handed back to me, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would become everything Ethan Vance claimed to despise. He had always preferred girls with the long, flowing hair, the kind who were gentle and demure. So, the first thing I did was visit a salon and have my waist length black hair cut into a short, modern style. I started spending my weekends on the slopes with my friends, skiing until my legs ached, and took up surfing again, letting the ocean spray wash over me. My nights were filled with the laughter of friends at parties, a life I had given up for him. In my previous life, I hadn't understood the truth until long after we were married. Ethan had always been in love with Sophia Reed, his childhood friend who had been raised like a sister in his family. His mother, however, had vehemently opposed their relationship, even threatening her own life to keep them apart. He had been forced to find someone else, and he chose me, largely because I bore a passing resemblance to Sophia. Our marriage was a cold and distant affair on his part, while he remained emotionally tethered to her. I had responded with tears, with desperate fights, and eventually, with a complete loss of myself. The day I finally gathered the courage to ask for a divorce, a car accident stole my life, leaving me with a heart full of bitter injustice. Now, living this life over again, when my friends would ask, "Are you doing all this to get Ethan Vance's attention?" I could finally give them an honest answer. "No," I'd say with a small smile. "I'm doing it to stay away from him." One of my best friends, Leo, was having a birthday, and he'd invited me to a party at a karaoke bar. When I pushed open the door to the private room, the celebration was already in full swing, music blaring and people singing off-key. No one seemed to notice my arrival at first, but as I made my way through the crowd to find Leo, he suddenly let out a shout. "Whoa, Chloe, you cut your hair?" Leo had a voice that could carry across a stadium, and at his words, the music seemed to falter as everyone turned to look at me. The mood in the room shifted subtly, their eyes fixed on my short hair, cut just above my ears, and their expressions grew complicated. I chose to act as if nothing was out of the ordinary, offering a casual smile. "Yeah, I just got it done," I said, running a hand through it. "The stylist said this look really suits me. What do you guys think?" A chorus of overlapping voices responded. "It looks great," one person said. "Really good," added another. Those who complimented me showered me with praise, but I couldn't help but notice their eyes kept drifting in one particular direction. "I don't think it looks good," a blunt voice stated, cutting through the politeness. The words came from Sophia. As soon as she spoke, she covered her mouth with her hand, feigning regret. "Oops, I'm so sorry, Chloe. I just accidentally said what I was thinking. You know me, I've always been the straightforward type. You're not mad, are you?" Before I could form a reply, Ethan stood up from his seat beside her. "Yeah," he echoed, his voice firm. "It really doesn't look good." His every word and gesture was a clear defense of Sophia, and the atmosphere grew thick with awkwardness. It didn't bother me. I just smiled and said, "It's fine, I like it, and that's what matters." A few minutes later, Ethan motioned for me to join him outside. We stood facing each other in the dimly lit hallway. The low light cast shadows across his features, making them seem unclear, but I could feel the suppressed anger radiating from him. "Chloe, who told you to cut your hair all of a sudden?" he demanded. "Didn't I tell you I liked long hair on you?" "As your girlfriend, Ethan," I interrupted him, keeping my voice steady. "I think we should break up." The air between us seemed to freeze for a second. He frowned, his brow furrowing, and he opened his mouth to say something. Just then, a loud argument erupted from inside the room, the sharp voices of Sophia and Leo carrying into the hall. Ethan's frown deepened. With a cold scoff, he muttered, "Whatever," and turned his back on me, quickly returning to the party. I watched him walk away and let out a long, quiet breath. Ethan and I had met during our freshman year of high school. A fall during dance practice left me with a broken leg, and for months I had to use crutches to get around. It made me a target for bullies. They called me Limper behind my back and sometimes tried to trip me in the halls. One afternoon, a group of them stole my homework and ran off. I tried to chase them, crying in frustration, but I couldn't keep up. That was when Ethan appeared. There are moments in life when someone unexpectedly finds a place in your heart. Ethan didn't just help me get my homework back, he protected me for the rest of our time in high school. Even after my leg had fully healed, I continued to follow him around like a shadow. It had become a habit. Everyone knew I was in love with him. One day, he casually mentioned that he liked girls with long hair, so I let mine grow until it reached my waist. Another time, he said, girls should be gentle and quiet. So I quit the street dance club I loved, stopped going on skiing trips with my friends, and gave up surfing. I abandoned my friendships and my hobbies, reshaping myself into someone I barely recognized, all tailored to his preferences. Eventually, my efforts seemed to pay off. He finally agreed to be my boyfriend and even took me to meet his family. That was the first time I met Sophia Reed, the girl his family had adopted years ago. She clung to Ethan's arm and gave me a sweet smile. Chloe, you're so pretty. Ethan, you're lucky. Actually, I kind of look like Chloe, don't I? It was a casual remark, but it carried a subtle hostility that I didn't recognize at the time. I also didn't notice the way Ethan's expression stiffened for a moment. In my previous life, Ethan and I married without any major issues. But even after our wedding, he remained emotionally distant. The truth didn't come out until Sophia sent me a video of the two of them together, being intimate in a way that only a married couple should. Her smug, provocative words and the accompanying message cut into me like a knife. If my adoptive mom hadn't stopped me, I should have been the one to become Mrs. Vance. You think marrying him means you've won? Think again. He doesn't love you at all. You're just my replacement. The shock and fury were so intense, I coughed up blood. I grabbed our marriage certificate and rushed out of the house, determined to find Ethan and file for divorce immediately. On the way, I got into the car accident that ended my life, a life filled with hate and regret. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the past, right at the start of our college years. This time, I vowed to become the version of myself that Ethan Vance would despise. I would no longer be a hollow substitute for the woman he truly wanted. When I returned to the private room, Sophia was crying in Ethan's arms. His expression was cold and stern as he turned to my friend. Leo, apologize to my sister. Leo's neck stiffened. Why should I apologize to this fake little princess? He shot back. Your sister started it by bad-mouthing Chloe, and I just called her out on it. If anyone should apologize, it's her. She should say sorry to Chloe first. Sophia's eyes were red and watery as she spoke in a wounded tone. But I was just telling the truth. Is that wrong? She looked up, her eyes full of tears, as if she were the victim of a great injustice. Leo wasn't about to let her off the hook. Then calling you fake and petty is also just me telling the truth. I guess I'm not wrong either. Enough, Leo, Ethan snapped, his tall frame pressing forward with an intimidating energy. But Leo didn't back down. At that moment, they all turned and saw me standing in the doorway. Sophia's eyes lit up. Chloe, you're finally here. From what I could piece together from others, I already understood what their fight was about. After Ethan and I had stepped out, Sophia had started talking about me behind my back, calling me stingy and mean. It all stemmed from a trip Ethan and I had taken to the Maldives. Sophia had hinted that she wanted to come along, but I had politely told her I wanted the trip to be just for the two of us. Apparently, she didn't take the hint or chose not to and came with us anyway. On the first day, she claimed she didn't want to go outside for fear of getting sunburned, so Ethan stayed at the hotel with her, playing video games all day. On the second day, I finally persuaded her to come out, but she spent the entire time complaining about a stomachache, cramps, and nausea. Ethan ended up booking the earliest flight home. The trip I had planned so carefully was completely ruined. I was upset and couldn't stop myself from snapping at Sophia. She cried and said, I'm sorry, Chloe. I just wanted to spend some time with you, my future sister-in-law. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Ethan calmed me down, but it was clear whose side he was on. Sophia meant well. Besides, she's family. If we get married, she'll be your sister too. What's the harm in giving in to her a little? Family, sister. Those words had made me back down then. I truly loved Ethan, and I wanted to be a part of his world. For him, I was willing to swallow my pride. But even then, Sophia was never satisfied. She continued to gossip behind my back. Maybe I was being too sensitive, but I could feel the shift when people started saying things like, Chloe got upset over something so small. That's kind of petty, isn't it? They said I gave off a bitter, mean spirited vibe. That was what Leo had overheard, which led to their argument. Now, seeing me walk back into the room, Sophia showed no trace of guilt. Instead, her expression was full of smugness, as if she had nothing to fear. Chloe, I was just talking casually, she said with a sweet smile. You're not going to take it personally, are you? And can't you do something about your friend? He's blowing everything out of proportion. He's the one stirring up trouble between us. She looked at Leo with gleeful satisfaction, completely confident that I would do what I used to do. Keep the peace for Ethan's sake, even if it meant siding against the friend who always stood up for me. But this time, she was going to be disappointed. I looked her straight in the eyes and said clearly and calmly, I take it very personally. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everyone in the room froze, including Leo. His eyes widened slightly as he stared at me. I offered him a gentle smile. Sophia looked stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she had just heard. She forced a smile and asked, What did you say, Chloe? I said, I take it very personally when someone talks about me behind my back, I repeated. Is that what you call being well raised? Her face flushed a deep red. She lifted her head, looking pitifully at Ethan, her eyes brimming with tears that threatened to fall. Ethan's usually calm expression darkened. Still, for some reason, he didn't argue or defend her. He just said coldly, So what? She said your haircut looked bad and now you're throwing a tantrum. Don't go overboard, calm down, and come talk to me in a few days. With that, he grabbed Sophia's wrist and walked out of the room. I almost laughed. In his mind, the breakup, the fight with Sophia, all of it was just me being petty and dramatic. It never even crossed his mind that I was serious. After they left, Leo looked at me, clearly frustrated. Sorry, Chloe, I made Ethan mad. Maybe I should go apologize to Sophia. I'll take the blame. I just don't want things to get worse for you. The look in his eyes was full of genuine concern. He knew how much Ethan had once meant to me, but that was the old me. I took Leo's hand and said gently, Don't. I already broke up with Ethan. His eyes widened in disbelief. What? Seriously? Yeah, seriously. I leaned in and hugged him, resting my chin on his shoulder. A lump formed in my throat, and I felt tears welling up. Leo and I had known each other since we were kids. When we were younger, he had lost all his hair due to medication for an illness and was constantly mocked at school. I was the loud, impulsive one. If anyone dared to laugh at him, I'd get in their face. We became inseparable, sharing a love for skiing, surfing, and the outdoors. But after I met Ethan, everything changed. I grew out my hair, tried to become quiet and ladylike, and stopped doing all the things I loved. My friends slowly drifted away one by one, until only Leo remained. There was no need for many words between us. Thank you, Leo, I whispered. Thanks for not giving up on me. He looked a little embarrassed, then patted me on the shoulder with a dramatic flair. It's just a breakup. Come on, the world's full of good guys. I'll help you find someone even better. I didn't take his teasing too seriously at the time. Once I got back to school, the first thing I did was quit the art club and rejoin the street dance club. When I submitted the withdrawal form to the faculty advisor, other members of the art club were there, including Sophia. Why is Chloe dropping out? One of them asked. Doesn't she know it'll cost her academic credit? Why else? Another person answered. She tried so hard to copy Sophia, but in the end, Sophia totally outshined her. Now she can't take it and is just giving up. The person who spoke was Sophia's roommate. Naturally, Sophia looked smug, but not entirely pleased. I knew she didn't want me to quit the art club. It was her comfort zone, the one place she could confidently feel superior to me. Sophia had been learning to draw since she was a child and was genuinely talented. I, on the other hand, was just an amateur. Back when I was dating Ethan, he once said that girls who could paint seemed elegant, so I gave up my other interests to learn. But compared to Sophia's years of experience, I was always a step behind. The university club system was practical. Activities were often tied to academic credits. Sophia, as one of the most skilled members, often made decisions. Once, she sent me to fetch some drawing paper, and I ended up getting splashed with oil paint all over my clothes. Someone took a photo of the mess and posted it on the campus forum, making me the butt of everyone's jokes. So, of course, she didn't want me to leave the one arena where she held all the power. "You're quitting the art club?" She couldn't help but ask. "Does Ethan know?" "What does that have to do with him?" I shot back. Sophia clearly hadn't expected such a blunt response. I didn't give her a chance to reply. I took the signed approval form from the instructor and walked away without looking back. For the next few days, life was surprisingly peaceful. I focused on myself, meeting up with old friends and rediscovering my own interests. Then, one night, I got a call from Ethan. His voice had a pitiful tone. "Chloe, my stomach hurts. Can you bring me some medicine?" Ethan had chronic stomach problems and often forgot his medication, using it as an excuse to call me. But I answered coldly, "Ethan, did you forget that we already broke up?" He was silent for a moment, then sighed, as if he were being incredibly patient. "All right, enough already. I've given you a way out of this. Stop being so stubborn, okay? I was wrong that day. I shouldn't have insulted you in front of everyone. You've been sulking long enough. I'm apologizing now." That condescending tone, as if offering me an apology was some huge favor, didn't even make me angry. I think I had reached a point of such complete disappointment that nothing he did could affect me anymore. "Ethan," I said, my voice serious, "we're done." I didn't wait for his reaction. I just hung up the phone. I sat in the quiet for a while and let out a soft sigh. Maybe the seriousness in my voice finally made him realize we were truly over because he stopped contacting me. But then Leo started acting mysterious, asking me out one day and saying he had a surprise for me. He insisted I do my makeup and wear something pretty, so I picked out a nice dress and headed to our meeting spot. As soon as I arrived, I saw Leo waving enthusiastically. Standing next to him was someone I didn't expect at all, Daniel Cole, a senior from our department. I walked over and greeted them, shooting Leo a questioning look. What was Daniel doing here? Daniel was one of the most admired students at our university. He was incredibly handsome, had top grades, and came from a well-off family. He had a massive following of admirers, but he was known for being aloof and rarely spoke to anyone unless it was necessary. "Is this your boyfriend?" I whispered, pulling Leo aside. With a completely serious face, he replied, "No, he's your boyfriend." I stared at him, totally stunned. Leo finally burst into laughter. "Remember when I said I'd find you someone better? I posted on my social media about setting you up, and I even included your photo. I said anyone interested could reach out." He paused for dramatic effect. And guess who did? Daniel Cole. I blinked. "Wait, how do you even have Daniel Cole's number?" "Oh, I added him during the academic symposium last semester. I had a question for him. That's not the point." He waved it off. "The point is, today is your blind date. So get it together and make a good impression. I'm rooting for you." That was Leo, my ever unpredictable, occasionally ridiculous wingman. No matter how hard I glared at him, he pretended not to see it. He handed us 2 tickets to the amusement park, gave Daniel a quick nod, and walked off without a backward glance. I was so embarrassed I could have dug a hole in the ground and hidden in it. Daniel seemed to notice my discomfort. He handed me a bottle of water and said gently, "Don't be so nervous. Just think of it as hanging out with a friend. Have you been here before?" His tone was calm and easygoing, just like him, warm, thoughtful, and relaxed. I gradually started to feel more at ease. For a moment, I wondered if Daniel had something he'd needed to discuss with me and was just using Leo to set up a meeting. With his looks and background, he wouldn't have any trouble finding a girlfriend. Why would he need to go on a blind date with me? That thought made me loosen up even more. I went around picking the rides I liked, waiting for him to bring up whatever he needed to say. Daniel was incredibly patient and considerate. I have a preference for the more thrilling rides, but wearing a dress made some of them inconvenient. Without a word, he took off his jacket and draped it over my legs. That small gesture reminded me of a time I had come to an amusement park with Ethan. When I wanted to try the exciting rides, he would frown and scold me. "Those are too dangerous. You're wearing a dress. It's not appropriate. Just don't go." People really are so different from one another. Just as Ethan crossed my mind, I thought I heard his voice. I turned around and there he was, walking with Sophia on his arm. In that same instant, they saw me too. Ethan's face changed immediately when his eyes landed on me. Then, noticing Daniel standing behind me, he scowled and walked straight toward us. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice low but forceful, like someone catching their partner cheating. I didn't know what to say. Before I could respond, Daniel stepped forward. "And who are you?" he asked coolly. Then, out of nowhere, he reached out and laced his fingers through mine. I froze, startled, but I didn't pull away. His hand was large and warm, and my attention shifted entirely to the feel of it. I couldn't even spare a thought for Ethan. Ethan's eyes instantly reddened. He glared at me and raised his voice. "We only broke up less than a month ago, and you've already found another guy." I looked at him, confused. "So what? Did you think I was going to stay celibate for you?" All I wanted was to get back at him with that one line. I didn't realize that I had basically just admitted that Daniel and I were together. By the time I processed what I'd said, I stiffened and glanced nervously at Daniel, only to find him smiling slightly, completely unbothered. Just then, Sophia came running over. Seeing the tension between the three of us, her eyes flickered with a complicated emotion. She tried to calm Ethan down. "Come on, Ethan, let's go back." But he ignored her completely. He looked at our clasped hands, then back at our faces, panic rising in his voice. "No way. You're lying to me, right?" He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "You barely even knew Daniel before. How could you be dating him already? You must have just seen us and made this up, right?" He had actually guessed correctly, but I couldn't let my confidence crack. "Who says I'm lying? He's my boyfriend," I shouted. Ethan went pale. Daniel's face was unreadable. He simply put an arm around my shoulders and said calmly, "Let's go." Without sparing them another glance, he turned and walked away with me. Once we were far enough from Ethan and Sophia, I quietly slipped my hand out of Daniel's and turned to him apologetically. "I'm sorry," I said. "I blurted that out without thinking and claimed you were my boyfriend. If it ends up causing you trouble later, I'll definitely clear things up." After all, he was extremely popular on campus, and the last thing I wanted was for unnecessary rumors to start because of me. To my surprise, Daniel suddenly bent down so his eyes were level with mine. He gave me a soft smile. "There's no need to apologize," he said gently. "I came here today with the intention of dating you. I'm happy you called me your boyfriend." I was stunned for a second. Then I remembered what Leo had said. Daniel hadn't just tagged along, he had really come for a blind date. But why? Daniel met my eyes and smiled faintly. "You might have forgotten, but we've met before. I've liked you for a long time." "When was that?" I asked, feeling awkward. I really couldn't remember. He didn't elaborate. Instead, he looked at me seriously and asked, "Since that's the case, would you be willing to give it a try with me?" His gaze was sincere, with a hint of nervousness that shook me a little. Still, I declined. The pain Ethan had caused in my previous life ran too deep. I just couldn't start another intimate relationship so easily. Daniel didn't seem upset. He simply smiled kindly and said, "That's okay." What Ethan was thinking, I didn't know at the time. I had a party to attend. The day we left the amusement park, Daniel had mentioned his mother's birthday was coming up and she would be hosting a party. He invited me, but quickly added, "Don't feel pressured. I'm inviting some other classmates too. I'd be happy if you just came as a friend." I thought about it and agreed. As expected, a lot of people showed up. The Cole family was prominent and wealthy, and many students were eager for a chance to network. To my surprise, I even saw Ethan's whole family there. Mrs. Vance saw me and walked over with Ethan and Sophia trailing behind her. "Chloe," she greeted me warmly, "you haven't been to the house in a while. I was just thinking about you the other day." Mrs. Vance had a reputation for being strict, but she had always been kind to me. She had liked me very much. Otherwise, she never would have approved of my relationship with Ethan. "Auntie, Ethan and I have broken up," I said calmly. I glanced at Ethan. Judging by his expression, he hadn't told her. Mrs. Vance's smile faltered. Her face darkened and she turned sharply toward her son. "What is this about?" she asked sternly. Ethan fumbled awkwardly. "It's my fault. I'll do my best to make it up to Chloe." Just then, Sophia stepped forward to defend him. "It's not entirely Ethan's fault." Before she could finish, Mrs. Vance slapped her hard across the face. "Don't think I don't know what's going on in your head," she snapped. She was well aware of the inappropriate feelings between Ethan and Sophia. It was her disapproval that had kept them apart. She turned back to me, taking my hand gently. "Chloe, if Ethan upset you, I'll speak to him when we get home. Please give him another chance. I truly hoped you would become my daughter-in-law." As soon as she said that, Ethan's eyes lit up with hope, while Sophia shot me a resentful glare. I was just about to politely decline when a familiar voice called out from behind me. "Chloe, there you are. I've been looking all over for you." I turned to see Daniel. He was dressed in a sleek black suit, looking elegant and handsome. He walked up beside me, nodded politely to Mrs. Vance and the others, then turned to me with a warm smile as he extended his hand. "Would I be lucky enough to ask you for a dance?" I glanced at the clearly uncomfortable Vance family, then placed my hand gently in his. After politely excusing myself, I let Daniel lead me away. Once we were out of sight, I leaned toward him and whispered, "Thank you, Daniel. That was a real save." He chuckled softly. "You're welcome, though I really did want to dance with you." And so I danced a waltz with him, flowing to the rhythm of the music. As the dance was nearing its end, he leaned close to my ear and said quietly, "Chloe, don't give Ethan another chance. You're amazing. He doesn't deserve you." Something warm surged in my chest and tears nearly welled in my eyes. In my past life, I had always blamed myself, wondering if I wasn't good enough. But now, I wasn't confused anymore. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough, it was that Ethan never knew how to cherish what he had. Still, the memory of the pain he caused left a dull ache in my heart. Daniel's words were like a gentle breeze, sweeping away the bitterness. "If you don't appreciate me, someone else will." After the party, Daniel and I grew closer. Slowly, cautiously, I began to try dating him. But this time was different from how I had been with Ethan. I no longer poured all of myself into someone else. I wouldn't tolerate injustice for love or let myself get hurt to maintain a relationship. I realize now that love should be mutual, about two people sharing affection, admiring one another, and growing together. But for some reason, Ethan started acting strange. He became overly attentive, sending me flowers and bringing me breakfast. I didn't accept any of it. I told him countless times that we would never get back together, but he acted as if he didn't believe me. "You've done so much for me. How could you not love me?" he'd say. "You're just mad at me, right?" I had no words for his stubbornness. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. One day, a post appeared on the campus forum. At the top was a photo of me with the word "player" stamped across it in bold letters. The entire post accused me of stringing Ethan along while also seducing Daniel. It listed so-called evidence, photos of Ethan bringing me gifts and others of me spending time with Daniel. Things escalated quickly, fueled by Daniel's popularity and a few people fanning the flames. That day, I went to the dance studio to change, and when I opened my locker, a bloody dead rat fell out. Even Leo jumped in shock. He turned to me and asked, "What do we do?" I answered calmly, "Call the police." The authorities arrived quickly and soon found the culprit, a petite girl who looked terrified that I had actually involved the police. "It's your own fault for being shameless," she sneered, not thinking she'd done anything truly wrong. "I just wanted to teach you a lesson." Leo looked ready to explode, but I held him back. I stared at the girl until she began to squirm. "Wouldn't this count as intimidation?" I asked the nearby officer calmly. "I refuse mediation. If she can be charged, then charge her." The girl's face turned pale as the officers escorted her away. I was bluffing, of course, but people should be held accountable for their actions. "The real person behind this is the one who made the post," I told Leo. He offered to find out who it was, but I shook my head. I already had a good idea. I went to see Ethan first. He was in the hospital with a recurring stomach issue. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. "Chloe, did you come here just to see me?" I didn't bother with small talk. I pulled out my phone and showed him the forum post. Did you write this? He stared at it, his expression shifting to a mix of indignation and hurt. How could you think it was me? He seemed genuinely surprised and hadn't known about the post. All right, if it wasn't you, then I'll leave, I said, putting my phone away. But he quickly grabbed my wrist, his tone pleading. Chloe, please don't be mad. Please forgive me. From his perspective, none of this made sense. He truly couldn't understand why I had broken up with him. I looked at him quietly. Do you actually want to be with me? Or do you just want me to stay so Sophia can look better by comparison? His face froze as if he'd been struck by lightning. How did you know? He whispered, his voice dry and brittle. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out. I didn't expect him to come running after me, barefoot and disheveled. He grabbed my arm, panic on his face. Chloe, I admit it, I did think that way before. But I don't like Sophia anymore, I really don't. The one I love now is you. I gave him one cold glance. If you really love me, then please don't cling to me anymore. His face went deathly pale. After leaving the hospital, I went to see Sophia, but this time I brought police officers with me. At first, she denied everything, but when the officers laid out the evidence, she finally crumbled. I just exaggerated things a little, she mumbled. It's not like I actually hurt you. Was it really necessary to get the police involved? Did you seriously think spreading obscene rumors comes without consequences? I sneered. Her eyes filled with tears and she suddenly screamed at me. It's your fault. Andrew used to only care about me. You're the one who stole him away. Her voice shook with a fury that had been building for years. As the officers moved to take her away, she continued shouting, her face twisted with hatred. The forbidden love, her adoptive mother's rejection, and a deep resentment toward me had spiraled into a madness that left her beyond reason. Watching her, I suddenly had a very bad feeling. It didn't take long for that feeling to come true. News of Sophia's arrest spread quickly. She was released soon after, but the gossip was relentless. She didn't show up to school for several days. When she finally did return, it was in a car. That day, I had just finished class and was on my way to meet Daniel for a date. Suddenly, the roar of an engine shattered the afternoon calm. Amid panicked screams, a car came speeding straight toward me. Watch out! Daniel reacted instantly, pulling me to safety. The car barely grazed the hem of my skirt. Sophia slammed on the brakes and turned her head to look back at me, her eyes filled with pure, insane hatred. Then, without hesitation, she turned the car around and drove straight at me again. People scattered in panic. Daniel pulled me away once more, but this time screams erupted from a different direction. Blood stained the pavement. Sophia had hit someone else. It was Ethan. He lay on the ground covered in blood. Sophia burst into tears and ran from the car, screaming his name. No one saw exactly how he had gotten there, but everyone knew what had happened. He had stepped in to stop her. The ambulance came quickly, and so did the police. Both Sophia and Ethan were taken away. I stood there in shock, still trembling, as Daniel gently pulled me into his arms. It's over now, he whispered. 6 months later, everything had settled. Sophia was sentenced to life in prison. Ethan didn't die, but he lost a leg and withdrew from school. At our graduation party, I stood backstage, getting ready for the street dance group's final performance. A younger classmate came in and said someone was looking for me. When I stepped out, I saw Ethan waiting quietly in his wheelchair, watching the stage. His eyes were darker than before, filled with a time-worn emotion I couldn't name. When he saw me, he smiled faintly. You've lived a good life this time, Chloe. After experiencing the edge of life and death, he, too, seemed to have been reborn in a way. I said nothing. I just turned and walked away. No matter what had happened in this life, I wanted nothing more to do with him. It was finally my turn to perform. I stepped onto the stage with my teammates, and we lit it up with our energy. In the audience, Daniel's eyes never left me. His gaze was focused, full of warmth. And suddenly, I remembered something. Years ago, when my mom was hospitalized for appendicitis, I used to visit her every day. One afternoon, I ran into a little boy crying alone in the hallway. To cheer him up, I danced for him. His eyes back then had been exactly like Daniel's now, sincere and full of wonder. I smiled to myself. When you finally bloom, the breeze will come.